welcome everyone to this remote meeting of Council, which is now open to the press and public on request. It's not practicable for this meeting to be broadcast live. However, a recording of the meeting will be made available as soon as possible after the meeting is concluded. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Please can members refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. Please remember to keep your microphones muted when you're not talking. And then we'll move on to the agenda. Thank you. Democratic Services will be making a note of members' attendance at the meeting. But should you lose connection, could you possibly leave a comment in the chat bar on your return to ensure that this is picked up? Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Geraint, have we any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've got apologies from councillors Crick, Hunt, O'Connell and Overton.
Thank you for that. Agenda item 3. Are there any other apologies from the floor? No. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Justine Cass, Deputy Managing Officer. Have you any advice for members, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. Good morning, everyone. Councillor Clarkson, I've spoken to you and you've stated that you have a personal and prejudicial interest in agenda item 11. This is on the British, as you're a member of the British liaison group. Can you confirm that this is the case, please?
Yes, I can confirm that. Also a member of Friends of the British.
Thank you very much. Councillor Davis, you've also made me aware of a similar interest, a personal and prejudicial interest in the agenda item. Can you confirm that this is the case, please?
Yes, I confirm.
Thank you very much. So you both will have to leave the meeting and you will then be called back in. Thank you. Councillor Janet Jones, you've made me aware that you have a personal interest in agenda item 14 as you're a member of the Royal British Legion. Can you please confirm that this is the case?
Yes, it's the case. I'm a member of the Blaenavon branch of the British Legion.
Thank you. Members, please note that in relation to agenda item 16, Lyndon Puddy will leave the meeting because the item is around the interim arrangements for the returning officer. And then lastly, Councillor Stuart Evans, you've made me aware that you have a personal interest in agenda item 17 as you are a representative of the Brecon Beacons Authority. Can you please confirm that this is the case?
It's Stephen Evans, not Stuart Evans.
Oh, I do apologise.
All right, thanks. Yeah,
Thank
I
you
do.
very much.
Yeah, I'm on Beacon.
And Presiding Member, that's it, although I can see that Councillor Ashley has his hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering, I was a consultee on the Blaine Brook thing. Do I, as ward councillor, do I have to declare on that or not? I was wondering about that.
No, that's your ordinary ward business.
Thank you. That's good.
Thank you.
Right, I have Councillor Colette Thomas, Councillor Hugh Bevan, Councillor Gaynor James with their hands up. Colette, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I think I need to declare an interest. I live in Sandybrook Close, which is off Ton Road, which was mentioned in item 15.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
How close is the road to it?
Well, my close is off the road, comes off Ton Road.
I would just say that you have a personal interest in that item.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Hugh Bevan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As the ward member for Llanfrecfr and Pontia, agenda item 17 covers the revised local development plan. So I think I need to declare a personal interest in that particular agenda item.
Sorry, is that because you're a ward member, Councillor Bevan?
That's right, yes.
If it's because you are doing your ordinary ward business, then there's no need to declare an interest.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gaynor-James.
Yes, can I declare interest on item 14 because I'm chair of the Royal British Legion Pontypool branch?
That would just be a personal interest, Councillor James. Thank you, though.
Okay, thank you.
Fine. Justine, anything else?
Not at this stage, thank you.
Thank you very much. And takes us to agenda item 4, which is the confirmation of the council minutes of the 4th of March 21, starting on page 5. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. Thank you, they are approved. Agenda item number 5, confirmation of extraordinary council minutes on the 16th of March 21, starting on page 63. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? And if not, I will take them as approved. Thank you, they are approved. Agenda item 6, confirmation of the annual council minutes of the 18th of May 21, starting on page 69. Again, members, could you possibly state whether you have anything in relation to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. Thank you. There's no signals there. They're approved. Agenda item 7, update on actions. Members, the updates on what has been done to implement our previous decisions start on page 103 of the agenda. Could you possibly indicate whether you have any questions or comments? Can I ask members if they agree to note the update on actions? Thank you. They are noted. Agenda item number 8, receipt of petitions. We have one petition today. The petition is in relation to a request from residents and users of Blenheim Road, St Dal's Ward, Cwmbran, to install chicanes on Blenheim Road. Councillor Haynes, I believe you're the sponsor for the petition. Could you possibly speak to the petition, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'd like to present this petition on behalf of St Dal's Ward resident Lisa Tutton. The online petition reads as follows. We, the residents and users of Blenheim Road, St Dal's Ward, Cwmbran, request the installation of chicanes on Blenheim Road. Since the installation of speed bumps on Green Meadow Way, Blenheim Road is being used as a route to bypass them. With the school entrance on the bend of Blenheim Road, the vehicles parking outside the shops and the newly built houses that have increased traffic even more, we are experiencing near misses on a weekly basis. The most recent involved a car being forced to mount a pavement and grass area at high speed. Had this been at school opening or closing time, severe injury or death could have occurred. This is one of the very few schools that does not have a lowered speed limit on its main road. Neither does it have any form of traffic calming. Why are we overlooked? We demand action be taken by Torfaen Council and request chicanes now be installed to reduce the speed and save the lives of our children and neighbours.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Members, do you agree for the petition to be sent to the relevant executive member for them to consider, respond and report back? Okay, I take that as a yes. Thank you very much. We'll accept that petition, Councillor Haynes. Agenda item number 9, public question time. There are no public questions, so we'll move on to agenda item number 10. The announcements from the Deputy Leader or Assistant Chief Executive. Deputy Leader, do you have any announcements, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I do have 1/2 announcements. Basically, yesterday saw the start of Armed Forces Week, where we have the opportunity to celebrate and reflect on the range of activities that Her Majesty's Armed Forces engage in. This is particularly poignant this year because of the COVID pandemic. We have once again seen servicemen and servicewomen step up to the mark and support frontline, and in many cases become frontline services to cope with the hospital issues, to cope with the immunisation, etc., etc. So when we reflect this year, I think we should bear that in mind as well. Obviously, tomorrow is a celebration of our reserve forces, again, who have stepped up to the mark during the last 12 months. And on Saturday, the week culminates with Armed Forces Day. It is regrettable that in the times that we were unable to do our service outside the Civic Centre, which I know many members come along to, but I can assure you the flags are raised outside the Civic Centre. Torfaen has a proud history of supporting our armed forces, and the flags just show our continued support for the servicemen and women who support us, the reserves who step up to the mark, and the veterans who have given their time in the past. On the subject of veterans, and it's very sad because had there been any activities, this gentleman would have been at the forefront of them. It is with regret that I announce the death of Captain Lou Freeman, retired, a stalwart of the armed forces, chairman of the local Royal Welsh Association, and I'm sure our thoughts and prayers are with his family at this tragic time. Sorry to end on a sad note, Madam Presiding Member, but those are my announcements.
Thank you, Deputy Leader, and the Council's condolences go to Captain Freeman's family. Nigel Aurelius, Assistant Chief Executive, do you have any announcements to make?
No announcements today.
Thank you, Nigel. Agenda item number 11, the British Project Update and Revised Remediation Proposal, which is on page 107. Councillor Joanne Gordon, Executive Member for Economy, Skills and Regeneration, could you introduce the report for us, please?
I can. Thank
Sorry
you.
to cut in, Councillor Gordon, but before you start, Councillors Clarkson and Giles Davis need to leave, I believe.
My apologies. Sorry, Lynn and Giles. Just a moment, Joe.
Yeah, they've both left now, so you're good to go.
Thank you, Geraint. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Geraint. I forgot about them leaving too. So the British site is, and it has further potential to be one of our prized green assets in this borough. When the council bought the site in 2016, we knew that the site needed investment, and we knew that would take time. We also knew as an old abandoned industrial site that it had its risks. In November 2018, Cabinet approved a master plan which had been co-designed and co-developed with the community. The priority for improving the site was twofold. Firstly, geotechnical investigation and remediation. This involves locating and remediating the shafts and adits located along the proposed new watercourse and remediating those shafts and adits that pose the greatest risk to amenity users of the site. Secondly, developing a surface watercourse to redirect the Blaen Gavog south of Farm Road from the existing culverts into new channels with the creation of one new permanent pond connecting to a depression reed bed by an open course water at the surface. In late 2019, in light of further work and costings, officers engaged with Welsh Government to bid for a further 2.98 million to enable the project to proceed into the procurement and delivery phase. The costings at the time indicated that the costs were more than appropriate for the scheme completion. The decision has been understandably delayed due to COVID, and over 2020, external construction costs have risen exponentially, which is why we're here today. I fully appreciate that with the request of 1.269 million is a huge ask of council. I believe that the site is a strategic green asset for the borough, which we have a duty to make safe and to enhance and deliver on the commitments made in 2016 and also 2018. I'll hand over to Rachel now. Rachel can talk through the reasons for the report today, the key risks and the next steps.
Morning members, thank you Councillor Gordon. As has been outlined, the proposal today is to seek council approval to commit 1.269 million from the council's capital budget. Appreciate this is already on top of the 2 million committed by the council in 2016, is also on top of that already committed by Welsh Government funding and also the NROR grant application, which is just shy of 3 million. I should say that when we submitted the bid into Welsh Government in late 2019, we were absolutely comfortable with the indicative costs at that time and did not foresee a further request for funding from Council. So why have costs increased? I think it's fair to say we now know a lot more about the site, its difficulties and its risks, and our knowledge is just getting greater day by day. A lot of work has been undertaken to assess the risks, understand the geotechnical issues, and identify the key shafts and adits that need addressing to manage the water site issues on the site and bring to life the community aspirations for ponds and a water feature. COVID has seen a massive increase in construction prices, which we also saw at the last council with Pontypool and New Inn Station. In addition, geotechnical resources are getting scarcer and scarcer and are now in much demand due to HS2. So these experts can unfortunately name their price. And we've also been advised that in recent years, geotechnical inflation costs have been quite stagnant and they're now on the rise. And when you put that all together, hence that's why we're before council today. As members will also be aware, particularly those who sit on planning committee, new legislation came into force in 2019, which meant that anything constituting development needs to have a sustainable urban drainage scheme applied. Whilst this is primarily a water scheme, but it's also a safety scheme, to deliver the master plan, a SUDS compliance scheme must be delivered. I should stress the watercourse work is imperative, A, to manage the flooding risk on site, B, to bring forward the master plan, even in terms of things like developing new trails or walks, and then C, in the longer term, when we start looking at the repair of the existing buildings, and also, but for the current now, giving the community the water feature they so desperately wanted. In the appendix, the Cabinet report is appended, which outlines the full risk assessment. But in terms of the key risks for council today, there are a number which you need to be aware of. The first one is we still have not had a decision from Welsh Government on the bid of just under 3 million for NRAW funding. I will say the mood music from officials is positive, but no final decision has yet been made. I can assure council that if approval is given today, no money will be expended until Welsh Government make a final decision, because we need all of this money to take forward the scheme. I also have to advise that we are still at design stage. We're not at tendered stage, so there is a risk of costs continuing to rise. Like all capital projects, if the envelope that this report is exceeded, we would then come back to members for further consideration on the way forward for this project. There is another risk that if funding is not approved, then the project will stop. We would withdraw from NRAW funding, and then a discussion would be initiated with Welsh Government about the money expended to date. As it was a live project, the funding has come from capital sources. However, this expenditure would then be converted to revenue and would have to be paid back, and this includes a revenue consequential to the council's budget to repay the capital programme. So in light of all of this, I recommend that 1.269 million is approved from the capital fund, recognising it is a significant investment. As Councillor Gordon has said, the council made a strategic decision in 2016 when it purchased the site, and then further in 2018 when the master plan was approved, which was developed in partnership with and for the community. I should say the British is a great green resource for this borough. It is beautiful and we're proud it is in our ownership. Through this scheme, we have the potential to increase safety, to alleviate flood and water issues, but also to allow us to move on to the next stage with the community on identifying how the site can evolve, continue its greening and cleaning, and importantly, we can then continue to seek funding to further enhance this site. It is a unique and historic site and therefore commend the recommendation to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I've got Councillor Stuart Evans wishing to speak. Councillor Stuart Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Rachel, for your presentation. I share your views with regard to British. It is a wonderful site, but I am getting quite alarmed about the intricacies of and getting funding, and obviously it's a concern, especially 1.2 million from the capital programme again. We're in a situation we can't go forward and we can't go back, so to speak. but I am concerned, and I want to ask you 1 or 2 questions, please, Rachel, if you could give me brief answers for those. Referring to page 111, 5.1, we have identified have you identified alternative funding options if the NRAW funding isn't forthcoming? And what timescale could this have on the phase 1 work commencement, bearing in mind the rising costs currently because of time lag? That's the first question, Rachel, please. And the second one, how does the estimated cost of each shaft work in 5.2, where they go on to say that they've estimated the cost of the shaft work? How does this work? It's an estimation. How do they arrive at it? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. I'll deal with the first one, and then I'm going to pass over to Dave Leach, who's been really involved with the consultants on the question relating to 5.2. I can, we do fully appreciate the concerns over the intricacies of the funding, of pulling all of this together. We are literally trying to pull funding from all sources to enable us to deliver on this site. It's no different with what's been done in other areas. Say, for example, in the THP project, where we've gone for HLF funding in Blaenavon. So we are used to looking for funding sources. Now, is there an alternative to the NRAW funding referred to in paragraph 5.1? At the moment, no. I'm being honest, there's not at the moment, but it would be something which if Welsh Government say that it's not going to be forthcoming, clearly we would do all we can with officials and with lobbying to try and secure that funding. And as I said, the mood music from officials has been very positive to date, but there is no backup waiting for an application to go in on that grant funding. Dave, can I bring you in and ask you to talk through the question relating to para 5.2, please?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel, and thanks, Councillor Evans, for the question there. So in relation to how the costs have been estimated, over time, these costs have developed. So initially, there was previous documentation on the site. This is when the report came into council in 2016. So previous documentation from old surveys that have been done over many, many years. We've then refined that down through a desktop and walkover survey, which was done in 2018. So what that means is actually going out onto the site and finding those locations where the previous work had said that those shafts and adits were, and looking for the signs that they were actually visible on the site at that point. And then that's refined again, and that's what the consultants have been working on recently, which is looking at old abandonment plans, looking at what those features are on the ground, mapping any changes with those features on the ground, and that gives them a better understanding then as to what shaft or adit type they're dealing with. And then they've got estimates based on discussions they've had with construction companies as to the type of treatment that they need to do for each of those shafts and adits. Now, I would say this very much is still at an estimate stage at this stage and at a certain stage of design. The final costings for this will be understood once it goes to tender, so further down the line in terms of the project delivery. But they've got a sort of ever-increasing understanding as to what the treatment method would be, and it's now down to the level of each individual shaft and adit and the treatment proposals for each individual shaft and adit, as opposed to just a general cost for treatment.
Thank you, Dave. Could I come back very briefly, Chair? Dave, you mentioned the estimate costs. Of course, they could go up and they could go down. So we could be talking about more money again for this project, and that worries me. But thank you very much both for your answers.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Dave Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Some interesting comments there so far. I'm not sure whether anyone's ever bothered looking back at the report in 2016, but I have. The report of the Council in 2016 stated that acquiring the British site was a once-in-a-generation opportunity to acquire the site at a reasonable purchase price, and that officers were confident that no further site investigation was required at that stage. Jump forward to today, and it turns out that the estimates were 115% short of what is now being asked for, and that the remaining potential risks, and final tender costs make even this extraordinary increased figure uncertain. I've got 4 questions I'd like to ask officers, if that's okay, Madam Presiding Member. First one is, how could officers get the initial projected costs so wrong? How can members be confident, have any confidence, that the figures presented today are any more accurate than those projected in 2016? My second question is, what is the estimated final cost to the authorities associated with the British project, including all future phases identified in the master plan? The third one, what is the likelihood that the council will ever recoup what it intends to spend on the site? And my final question is, what are the funding limits of this project, or does the Labour administration intend to spend whatever it costs?
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Did you get all that? Because I think you were covering your microphone with your paperwork, Councillor Thomas. Rachel, did you get that?
I think so. Councillor Thomas, can I just read them out to you to make sure I've got them all? So the first one was, how can officers, I'll summarise because I was noting, how can officers have got the costs so wrong in 2016, and therefore how can members be confident in the costs that are before us today? Then we've got something about then we've got the costs of the future phases to deliver the entire master plan. Then how will council recoup the funding that's been expended, and then what are the funding limits the council is prepared? That's the 5. Brilliant. Okay. Fantastic, thank you. So on the first one, so I joined this authority in late 2017, and clearly the report had gone forward in 2016 by my predecessor. I can advise members that, you know, due to concerns raised by the community, particularly over 2018, I undertook quite an extensive review into the British, and in terms of the report that had gone to council, I looked at the information that had been supplied, which sat behind the council report in 2016. And as I put in my opening remarks, it came to light that further investigatory work was needed on the shafts and adits to enable us to take forward. Now, I do believe that my predecessor absolutely wrote this report in good faith. My understanding is that he knew the site inside out, but that is not sufficient in terms of being able to take forward a major construction scheme such as this today. So we have commissioned experts. We have not had the capacity in-house to enable us to take this work forward in terms of assessing the risks, identifying the shafts and adits that are needed to be remediated to enable us to undertake the water course coming forward. So I can assure members that a lot of due diligence has been undertaken the last couple of years on this site. We are well aware of the risks that a site such as this poses for the council. It's in our ownership, and it is our duty and therefore our responsibility as landowners to ensure that if people are using the site, they are using it safely and we are not putting people at risk. And as we've gone on through the design phases of this, that is why the costs have gone up and further work is needed over and above what was reported in 2016. In terms of the cost of the future phases, we have no costs on those, Councillor Thomas. We have the council report in 2016 did say that this would be the first phase in terms of geotechnical and the water courses, and that is what we focused on. Now, there is aspirations for trails, for walks, for then beginning to look at the historic buildings on the site, to look at sort of like, you know, interpretation, to allow people to appreciate and understand that site more. That has not been costed because we need to get this phase 1 over the line. And then what we will do with our officers and the community is then say, right, what's next? What are we starting to work on? And then we would be seeking appropriate funding sources for that. in terms of council recouping our money, you know, is it a money maker for the authority? That's not how the master plan has been designed or how it was intended in 2016. And I think, you know, this is one which we see as a green asset, like we do with any other part of our infrastructure, our parks and our open spaces within our borough. I think in terms of the final question, what are the spending limits? I think, you know, that was aimed at the Labour administration, and I think it might not be appropriate for me as an officer. It's my duty to come forward with recommendations for proposals and allow the members to make a decision on what that spending cap should be based on priorities in the entire council programme. So I hope that helps.
Chair, can I just quickly come back on just the last comment by Rachel? Obviously, she can't comment on what the project's the limits is going to be, but so I would imagine Councillor Gordon can then.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, for your question. I think when we make decisions around funding, they need to be sensible decisions, aren't they? We haven't got a set funding limit. You know, when we purchased this site, we knew that there was financial risks, and we just need to face each challenge as it comes and make decisions as it comes.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. I've got Councillor Hugh Bevan next. Councillor Hugh Bevan. Seems to be having problems there. Should I go on to Councillor Janet Jones?
Sorry, Chair, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Yeah, apologies for that. I was having a problem getting in. I'll just try and turn the camera on. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think this has been, it's very sad that this is yet another example where it seems to be a bit of a folly. It's cost an enormous amount of money. And I can recall the original debate when members took the decision to go ahead for the council to make the decision to acquire the land called the British. The former leader of the Conservative group, Graham Smith, spoke extensively about the possibility of these hidden costs, which Councillor Joanne Gordon is now referencing, saying when the decision was taken to acquire the site, we knew that there would be hidden costs. And it's clear that these hidden costs are far, far greater than what was originally anticipated, which is the point that Councillor Thomas made. And I also echo the sentiments that Councillor Stuart Evans has made as well, in terms of the potential being there for further cost increases, which would result in further requests for additional capital expenditure. And I find it alarming that in this day and age, post-recovery, that this projected cost is just on page 111, is not far shy of £8 million for a pond and a bit of recreational land for walking. And you wonder, is it not questionable whether £8 million, albeit that's not 8 million coming directly from the council, we're asking, you know, 3 million from Welsh government. It seems to me a very expensive pond and recreational site. When you look at the breakdown of costs that have already been incurred, we're looking at professional fees and salaries of over 280,000. Site investigation works is just under 1.9 million, and then design 460,000. Those three items alone come to nearly £2.5 million. And that's before we've spent any money on the remediation works and on the watercourse implementation. And I find that rather shocking. So why has so much money been spent, 2.5 million, on fee, salaries, investigation and design before we've even taken into account the cost for the remediation works and the watercourse implication? That's the first question. I am concerned about potential for further cost increases and further demands being made upon the council for additional capital funding, because at this stage, and the report mentions on page 112 under section 5.3 the risks, the report actually alludes to the fact that the costs are still only at a design stage and not at a tendered stage. So that given what the executive officer has said now about the potential for cost increases, and we've seen significant cost increases in the geotechnical work and the availability of materials and expertise and so on during the pandemic and HS2, there is significant potential there for cost rises and therefore significant risk to the council going forwards for increased costs. And finally, on page 5.3, and this is the one that I really have an issue with as well, it says, and I quote, "This report therefore seeks approval for a policy position and a funding envelope which, if exceeded through the tender process, would need to be brought forward to the Cabinet once more to determine the preferred option for the overall project." So why is this being brought before full members now in council, asked to approve this extra capital funding, but should the cost increase as a result of when we get to the tender stage, which is very, very extremely likely, given what's already been said in the report and the commentary today, that the decision then would be deferred to the Cabinet and not brought back before all of us members in full council? Thank you.
Before you come in, Rachel, can I ask members to please keep their questions concise to the report? We've got a long agenda this morning and it's going to take some time to get through if everybody's going to preamble and mention what is already in the report that members have already read. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Thank you, Councillor Bevan. In terms of the three question, the breakdown of the expenditure which you referred to in the report, which is at paragraph 4.4, I should say that that is a summary of the total cost and not expenditure that has been expended to date. Now, do appreciate, as you quite rightly say, fees, salaries, site investigation, design works are high. That is because of the complexity of this site. Now, I'd like to think that we've erred on the side of caution and we've been realistic in our assessment. And clearly, you know, you are absolutely right. And we've been very honest in this report that we would be, you know, looking to go out to tender, but it is pertinent of us that we do raise that this is still only design costs at the moment, and that's what those figures are based on. Clearly, if there is through the tender process an increase in costs, which we really hope we've been quite sensitive and conservative with our assessments at the moment, then this would come forward. In terms of that paragraph in 5.3, in terms of why it would go before Cabinet, clearly, you know, the decision, you know, would be for Cabinet what would happen with the scheme. If Cabinet therefore wanted the scheme to end, then the scheme would end. If Cabinet wanted, if tendered costs came in greater, it'd be a policy decision by Cabinet on the way forward for this project, and they then would make recommendations like they have today for Council to pull down further funding if that's what Cabinet wanted to do. So the decision for any capital funding will always be by Council. That's what's in our constitution, but the policy decision on whether or not that capital is called for would be a decision for Cabinet. So that's why it's written that way in the report. So please be assured that it wouldn't be just a straight decision by Cabinet for further capital funding. So I hope that answers that one.
Thank you, Rachel. Councillor
Yeah,
Janice
thank you,
Jones.
Rachel.
Thank you. I had two questions, but one has already been answered by Rachel. The second question is, when do you anticipate an announcement from Welsh Government as to the funding that we're hoping to achieve?
Can I bring Dave on that one, Councillor Jones, if that's okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Councillor Jones. The funding that we're hoping to receive from Welsh Government needs to have a clear design brief, if you like, as to what it is that we're trying to achieve. So they're dependent on the decision today, but everything else is prepared for that, and the discussions have been taking place with officers over a number of months now. So once we're able to confirm to them the position after today, I would expect that within a month or two.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Nicholas Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll do my best to keep the preamble very, very short, but sometimes it really is necessary to set the context of the question, and quite honestly, it shouldn't be curtailed if it is necessary. My direct questions, the direct question that I have got is around the original decision in 2016, and it was due diligence actually done before purchase. And the reason I ask that question is that a lot of what we're discussing at this moment involves surveys. It strikes me that we appear to be someone who's bought a house without having done a survey, only to find out that we've got dry rot and a leaky roof and all of these things. We're asking the council and the residents to spend an incredible amount of money on surveys which perhaps should have been done prior to us purchasing the land in the first place. The second question that I have got is that this tranche of money that we've got at this moment in time, I was wondering what frontline services at the next budget stage might be put in jeopardy as a result of this spend. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Sorry, little problems with my mic then. Thanks, Councillor Jones. I think, you know, assessments were undertaken back in 2016 prior to the purchase of the site, but not to the extent that we have done so over the last couple of years. And it is because, you know, we now have to get into the state of the geotechnical in terms of extensive drilling on the site and into the shafts to find out what is needed. So that is why the costs have gone up. There was assessments done, as I said, by my predecessor in terms of the sites, but just I think, you know, as you would even if you'd bought a house with a survey, sometimes you can still find that there's more that needs doing post purchase. In terms of what services will be put at risk, this is being funded from the council's capital fund, not from the revenue. We're not looking for it to be for prudential borrowing to fund this, which would then have a revenue tail, which would have to be found from the MTFP. So it is purely a ring-fenced amount from the capital budget, which, you know, shouldn't then have an impact on the revenue budget provision for our services.
Thank you. Just one other question, just a bit more contextual. If we did do due diligence when we first purchased this, why would it be that we can't locate the shafts within 15 meters? You know, that seems like you know, a very sketchy report that might have been done to start with. It seems you know, incredulous that we, you know, we still don't even know where these things are, and we're 5 years down the road. It just doesn't seem to ring true somehow.
Dave, can I bring you in on the technical in terms of the 15 meters, please?
Yeah, no problem at all. And thanks, Councillor Jones, for the question. In relation to a lot of the previous work that's been done, there's been drilling into some shafts and adits, but there's many shafts and adits on the site, and they would have been looked at for different reasons in the past. So they're not necessarily all of the same ones as we're looking at for the watercourse. And in terms of the challenges around locating those, We know where those shafts and adits are mapped. We've got the abandonment plans that show where they should be in relation to the actual coal seams and the issues that we've had on site. But when you actually do the drilling into the location where it's proposed, it may be slightly further to either side of that. And that's normally due to things like geological faulting. It may be due to something where the issue with the shaft, potentially say a collapse within that shaft structure, is appearing on the land at a different location to where the actual shaft is itself, because the collapse of the wall has pulled material into the shaft. So that's why there's still a bit of uncertainty, and that uncertainty won't go away until we're physically drilling down into there to actually locate the center point of that shaft. So I hope that gives a bit of clarity on that.
Yes, thank you for that. So the cost could escalate quite dramatically from from that brief synopsis then.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Elizabeth Haynes.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Just a couple of comments, really. I'm a little bit worried about the fact that no decision has been made by Welsh Government on the funding. So should we really be looking to put more funds in until we hear about that? Worried about the comment that said costs could continue to rise. And there seems to be no answer about the capping of that. Because Joe said that there's no set funding limit, and that we need to make decisions as they come. I think that's quite foolish to be dealing with this amount of money in that way. After all, it's public money that we're putting at risk. It's not ours. It's the people that are paying into the pot, whether that be through council tax or central funding. It all comes from the public at the end of the day. I'm also worried that this could be sort of Torfaen's own version of the HS2, and that really, I've got massive concerns about this, and the report has not waylaid those concerns at all yet.
Thank you. I don't know whether there was a question there. Rachel, did you pick anything? No, thank you. Alan Slade, Councillor Alan Slade, please.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, great. I don't think it really should have come as a surprise to anyone that, we are where we are today, because, I mean, the report in 2016 was saying that previously this site had changed hands between private developers for millions, whereas, the asking price at the time, or the guide price for the auction, was 250,000. If something looks too good to be true, it probably is. I don't believe, in fairness, I don't think that we've got enough information in this report to make any decision here, because there's just not the detail. I mean, the table in paragraph 4.4, page 111, speaks of the money spent so far as being just over £1 million. But when you look at the budget, the figures that's been put forward in the budget for the last 5 years, I told them up, and it's more like 3.1 million. So, I mean, there's got to be a point at which we need to consider walking away. And I just wonder if kind of this is the best time. But in fairness, I don't think we should make a decision today. So I would like to propose a motion that we defer the decision until a member seminar can be arranged so we can discuss this in further detail. And perhaps we could have a site visit so members could see for themselves, particularly, I'm from Cwmbran, so we could see for ourselves the full extent of what this project involves. So that's what I would prefer. I think we should defer the meeting, and I'd like to propose that as a motion.
Thank you very much. I think we'll continue the debate at the moment. Alan, if you are proposing a motion, I will need to put the council meeting on hold for you to email that motion in so that people can see it and have sight of it, and then officers deal with it and then we'll have to come back. But I've got a few people wishing to speak. So if you would like to compose your motion and that is still available at the end of the debate, then we'll deal with that. I've got Councillor Gwyn Jenkins next.
Thank you, Chair. Those of us up north know that I'm very passionate on this because I was on the British Liaison Committee. I've been going over that site for the last 50 years. I got to be honest, I was involved with Mr. Leach, and we spent a lot of time discussing this. We used to have regular meetings on it. But I got to be honest, I go over that site every day with my dogs. The only thing that I've noticed over there, where they're working, I don't know. They put fences all around the buildings, tyre tracks everywhere. And for those down south who don't realise what happens with coal mines, like David said, when people went in on coal mines, they always grabbed a little bit more than what they should have. So the plans are never exact. And I know this from experience because my coal mining site got 10,000 people on. The other thing is we feel very passionate about it. Now, I've been asking every time we have a planning meeting for a site visit. Now, I think that Councillor Slade said, let's go for the site meeting. I've got this written on my page by year. Yes, let's have a site meeting. Let's get up there. We can all keep social distancing because unless you visit the site, you won't see the potential that's there. Now, another thing I would like to ask is there any way that this could be incorporated into Blenavon Heritage Site? Now, people may say, oh, it's not near Blenavon, but if you look at the site, Clydach Ironworks, it's got a plaque down there saying part of the Blenavon Heritage Site. Now, whether this could, I don't know, somebody'd have to really delve deep into this. And if I'm keeping on, tough luck, because I'm going to carry on, I'm not going to stop. And at the end of the day, right, that site is, it is a very, very dangerous site. We had a young lad die there many, many years ago. Since that time, that's all they've done is fill the one shaft in where the lad died. I can't get the word, remedial on that site. To me, I can't see nothing is done. And it amazes me when I went through this report and seen how much was spent on consultants and on the look around the site. Yeah, David is right. It is hard to plan any plot, have a look at any adits, any underground workings and everything else. Yes, I agree that it's got to be done, but I think I want it done. But at the end of the day, it's got to be a decision for council. Us up north would really like it, but I think we should defer this decision until we have a site visit and there's more looking into it. What do the members think?
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. I've got Councillor Robert Kent next.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Basically, this is a question for Nigel Aurelius in regarding the monetary side, if you like. The fact that we're looking at removing £1,269,179 out of the capital fund. How much money at the moment is in the capital fund, and will the removal of such a large amount put the council at risk going forward? Thank you.
Nigel, do you have that information at hand?
I don't have all the numbers absolutely to hand, but what I can say is that if council, were looking to agree this report and allocate that money, it wouldn't cause a problem for the currently approved capital schemes within the capital programme. I wouldn't be coming back saying, well, we've got to make economies on the schemes that members have approved. What it will do is it'll be an opportunity cost for schemes that members could approve on other things. So it won't cause a problem to the approved capital programme, but it will obviously impact on the choices members can have going forward.
If I could come back there, Madam Presiding Member, if you like.
Yes, that's okay.
Without detracting from this particular agenda item, there's other agenda items coming up, which is again asking for further capital funding. And so basically looking at the bigger picture, the fact that we're asking for a lot more money out of capital will, with the ask of such large combined amount of capital funding, would that put the council at risk, or have we got to be a bit more selective in regarding the projects we're going to have to contribute more money to? Thank you.
Nigel, do you have an answer?
I mean, obviously, you know, you can only spend the money on capital once. In terms of the further reports that are coming, they're either a modest call on the capital programme, or actually they're being funded by savings that are being generated, as opposed to being a call on the capital resources. So yeah, I stick by the original answer. I mean, obviously, the more you approve out of the capital programme, the less choice you've got for new schemes, but it won't come at a cost to the currently approved capital programme.
Chair, just one more comment, if you like. I know that we're still debating this agenda. I think there might be enough time for Nigel to come back with an amount that's currently in the capital fund for the members at this present time. If possible, could Nigel do that, please?
Well, it's not really it's not contextualizing the position any more than I've actually said. We've got a number of schemes within the capital programme, or a lot of them are going through exactly this this same position. So the position tends to move. What I can agree, if members would so wish, we can bring a capital report to the July council, showing the current position of the capital programme and all the issues that are within it, and that would probably be a more practical way forward.
And going on what Councillor Slade has suggested earlier, and Councillor Jenkins in regarding the possibility of deferring for a seminar, I think Nigel's remarks there, I'd be quite happy with that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. Councillor Fay Jones.
I'd just like to make a statement, and that is, we've heard of this terrible one tragic accident quite a few years ago. It's not a safe area. If we put it off, or we do nothing, or we put it off and then do nothing, if there's another accident, will we feel responsible? Do we need to get on and make this area safe? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I'll bring Rachel in at the end of the questions. I've got Councillor David Daniels next.
So thank you, Chair. Actually, my point is sort of building on what Councillor Fay Jones has said, which is that the site isn't safe. I mean, it's demonstrably not safe. I mean, Councillor Jenkins earlier said that something needs to be done, and he'll know the area more than most in this meeting. Something needs to be done, and that's the option. That's the decision we've got faced today: is we do something or we do nothing. And I'm not really hearing from the sort of objectors. I'm not really hearing an alternative to something that needs to be done. And I think that the allegory of a house is not an accurate one. We went into this fully knowing that this is a dangerous site. It was passing from private owner to private owner to private owner and degrading all the time, and at all points posing a risk to the public, who obviously want to go there because it is a beautiful site. I mean, I've been there myself. It is a beautiful site and has a lot of potential. But those private developers were not going to do the work that needs to be done. And unfortunately, it falls to us as the public body to do the work that needs to be done to make it better for the surrounding community. And there is a lot of potential there for the borough as a whole. I've looked at the master plan that was featured. I think it was a few years ago. It's excellent. It makes me very excited. The master plan. There's a lot in there that I think we should be championing, because we've had members, of the opposition and members of the Labour Party saying that we need to do more for tourism, need to do more for the local economy. And this master plan that we need to do remediation works in order to unlock the master plan is exactly what we're talking about. We want people to be coming to the area like people go to Llandegford Reservoir. You know, it's a beautiful place, and so can the British be. What is the alternative is the question I ask. And I think it needs to be asked of officers as well. Is there time to defer it and have a seminar and a site visit as well? I think that's a key question that needs to be answered too. So personally, I'll be supporting this this project today, this report, and I won't be voting in favour of deferring it. But it'd be interesting to have the answers there. It'd be interesting to have answers of what the alternative is from those who've spoken against as well.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. I've got Councillor Richard Clark.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. It isn't a question, it's trying to mop up some of the stuff that has been said and perhaps some historical context. I've been on the council 17 years. I know there are members who've been longer. It is a long-standing policy objective of this council that the British is taken forward and remedial matters are resolved for the site. Sadly, the demise of Sean in 1986 probably focused the council's view on that. The British is, I believe, the largest brownfield site in Wales. It is, I'm going to say scar, and I don't mean that in any disrespect to the area. It is a scar on our community and the wider Welsh community, which is why I think the Welsh Government actually proposes funding on the site. 2016 has been held up a number of times in this meeting as almost the bogeyman. Why did we buy it? We bought it for reasons Dave Daniels just alluded to. A succession of private investment was there, but all they did was take the coal, take the natural resource from there, and never put any remediation in. Yet again, this has fallen on public service because nobody else will do it. We now own it as per 2016. The advice in 2016 was in terms of ownership. Then, as David referred to, there was a master plan, and out of that master plan, costs have been not addressed because we're still looking at those costs, but costs have been looked at and predictions have been made as to those costs. So I think 2016 are two different events, other than we bought it in 2016. I do not resile from that position. I think we should be proud of that position because we've started to make an area safe and for the public benefit. It's not all cost, it is also value. We're not going to recoup, Councillor Thomas, the cost of this, but we will gain value for it for an area of green open space and a safe area of green open space in that facility. Gwyn, I love your idea of extending the Blenavon industrial landscape, and I hope officers will look at that because this is part of what made this valley so rich in industrial landscape. It sneaks over into Monmouthshire because of the linkage there. If there is linkage with this area, I would hope that would be explored. In terms of a seminar, I think if we had a seminar 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 weeks time, it's not going to be any different information that's been presented you today. And if the argument is we haven't got all the facts today, you're not going to have that information in 3 to 4 weeks time. By supporting this and allowing the Welsh Government to make their choice whether to go forward with this funding, then we can go forward and get the real costs and what have you. Deferring it, well, if we do get the funding, it has to be spent by, I believe, February 2023. Now, that sounds a long way off. In terms of construction and everything else, it's just around the corner. Every moment counts. If we defer this, the next council will be September, unless members want to come back for a special council in August. Even then, it's a deferral too far, and it takes a chunk out of that time when the money can be spent. And finally, people keep saying about the cap. We 44 members, not all of us here today, we are the cap. It might come back to Cabinet for a policy decision, but it comes back here before us all to vote on any further funding if and when it is needed. So we are the cap on that. a site visit with the greatest respect to everybody. Planning site visits for planning meetings, not all planning members turn up to them. I doubt if you'd get all 44 members of the council there. There was an induction for councillors back in 2017, and the British figured prominently in that because we just purchased it, and Duncan Smith, the architect of the British plan everybody refers to, actually went through in great detail. Sadly, not every member was there. I appreciate that members have other commitments, but I think just deferring it for a site visit, whilst people will get the value of the site, they can't see underneath and the adits and things like that. It's a lovely day trip for everybody, but what we need to do is progress now, approve this, go forward, and then monitor and review at future. If the Welsh Government doesn't come up with the funding, then we're back to square one anyway, and whatever we've proposed today doesn't come into being because we haven't got the money to go forward with it. We have to come back then with another report of what we do to make this site safe. At the moment, we're doing chunk one, which is the greening and cleaning and the remedial actions, and I propose that we go forward with that and members so vote accordingly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Can I see other people's hands up who've already spoken. I'm not taking any other comments. I'm going to have a comment myself as the chair, and then I'm going to bring the officer and the executive member back in. Can I just say I've been on the council a long time, and the council has sought solutions to this problem for years and years. That child, Sean, died 36 years ago. What's to stop another child going down an adit when they're exploring during the summer holidays? Where will our duty of care have laid then? And that's all I have to say. Thank you. I'll hand you now over to Rachel and Joe, and then we'll decide where we're going from there. Thank you.
Joe, do you want me to go?
Well, shall I go first and then you can clear up any questions? So, members, you've made lots and lots of good points, sharing your worries as well around the financial costs and the financial risks. Ultimately, we do own this site, and I believe we need to make it safe. And I believe that we should be realising the community aspirations so that we can encourage our residents to go out to that beautiful space, into that natural environment. If we don't approve the ask of council today, then we can't do either. There isn't an option, but we'd also be missing out on significant grant opportunities where we can regenerate one of the biggest post-industrial sites in South East Wales. So I will be supporting this report, and I ask that you do too. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
There's not much further I can add, Madam Presiding Member. I just think, in terms of some of the points, the Welsh Government funding decision is dependent upon the decision today to allow us to enable to get onto that next phase, as Dave outlined. If we do defer, the Welsh Government, and the timescale of 2023, which Councillor Clark referred to, is the Welsh Government expenditure that needs to be expended by 2023. So deferral does put the overall scheme at risk of delivery then, and risk of clawback from Welsh Government if we are successful in that grant. If approval was given today, then there would be, urgent, immediate conversations with Welsh Government officials. We'd also be undertaking, the leader and executive member engaging with ministers to facilitate an urgent decision from Welsh Government to enable us to progress as soon as possible. Hence why, we are recommending the report for decision today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We did have a proposal for a motion from Councillor Alan Slade. Are you still wishing to propose that motion, Alan?
Yes, I am. I don't honestly feel comfortable about just handing over a blank cheque without further information. I take on board.
Alan, that wasn't an invitation to speak. I just need to go through the process of the motion.
Okay.
You will
I would like to put.
You will need to email that. I know
have.
officers can give you an email.
I have emailed it.
The email has already gone through.
It has.
Well, I'd like to put a 15-minute delay on the meeting. We'll resume and have a comfort break for 15 minutes, and officers can come back to us with that motion. Thank you.
Has it been seconded, please?
Ah, thank you, Councillor Kemp. We do need a seconder for that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. We'll resume in 15 minutes.
Can I ask, should we leave, should we stay as part of this meeting, or do we leave and be invited back in?
Nothing's going to be discussed here. This meeting is this meeting, Nick. If people want to discuss things, I assume they do it on private channels. So
No, we don't want to discuss anything.
No,
It's just,
can I just
just
say,
whether-
stay in the meeting, just mute your microphone and turn your camera off, 15 minutes and we'll come back in.
Lovely. Thanks very much. That was what I was after. Thank you.
Members, I've received the motion through on email. If you can check your emails. Geraint, can you contact members when they are ready to come back in, please, just by speaking over the mic?
I think everybody's back in now, Chair. The number of attendees looks very similar to what it was earlier in the meeting.
Fine. We'll call everybody then, and we'll start at 24 minutes past. It's 23 minutes past now on my computer. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Alan Slade, for putting this motion together. And it's been emailed out. Members should have had sight of it. Can I ask if every member's had sight of the motion from Councillor Alan Slade? If not, if you could speak, please. Okay. Councillor Alan Slade, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I think there seems to be an impression that I'm kind of against this, and that's not true at all. And I do understand the implications that the council owns it and is therefore responsible for all the risks and the safety on the site. I think anyone appreciates that. I certainly wouldn't want to see any further accidents or deaths on the site. My God. All I'm asking for really is an opportunity to get more information. I mean, there are alternatives. There must be. There always are. So I just think for somebody like myself who is from Cwmbran, who perhaps doesn't appreciate the site as he should, I don't see anything really wrong with asking for a bit more information and an opportunity to see the place for myself. And kind of that's it. And that's why I'm proposing the motion. I'm not talking about delaying it forever.
Would you like to read your motion out, please, Councillor Slade?
Certainly. Given the complexity of the issue at hand and the potential significant cost implications from the public purse, I move that this decision is deferred until a member seminar can be arranged to discuss the issue in further detail, and a site visit can be held to allow members to see for themselves the full extent of what this project involves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. And we have a seconder for that motion.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And we'll take a vote on that motion. I think, Geraint, if it would be easier for everybody, if you could record the vote, please. For the motion or against the motion?
Thank you, Chair. I was going to start with Councillor Stuart Ashley, but I just saw him drop off, so I will come back and hope he's back in the meeting by that time. So if I can go to Councillor Hugh Bevan. Councillor Bevan, you're on mute. I'll go on to Councillor Burnett.
Against.
Councillor Karen.
Against.
Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Constance.
Against.
Councillor Cross.
Against.
Councillor Daniels.
Against.
Councillor Cathy Evans.
Against.
Councillor Stephen Evans.
Against.
Councillor Stuart Evans.
Because of the timescales mentioned, against.
Councillor Gordon.
Against.
Councillor Haynes.
For.
Councillor Haller.
Against.
Councillor Gaynor James.
Against.
Councillor Keith James.
Against.
Councillor Jenkins.
For the motion.
Councillor Jeremiah.
Against.
Councillor Fay Jones.
Against.
Councillor Janet Jones.
Against.
Councillor Nick Jones.
4.
Councillor Peter Jones.
Against.
Councillor Kemp.
Against.
Councillor Killick.
Against.
Councillor Molson.
Against.
Councillor Owen. Councillor Parish.
Against.
Councillor Powell.
Against.
Councillor Preston.
Against.
I don't think Councillor Rapier is in the meeting. I'm just double checking. No. Councillor Seaborn.
Against.
I don't believe Councillor Shepherd is in the meeting either. Councillor Slade.
For the motion.
Councillor Tew.
Against.
Councillor Colette Thomas.
Against.
Councillor Dave Thomas.
4.
Councillor Yole.
Against.
Against. I'm just going to go back to the start just to.
Could somebody let Stuart Ashley in? He can't get back in. He just phoned me. So.
Right, I will try and invite him back in now. Just ask Councillor Bevan. Councillor Bevan, how did you wish to vote, please?
For the motion, please.
For. I'm just calling Councillor Ashley back into the meeting now. Hopefully he'll join. The result is definitely against, Chair. Do you want the numbers totted up?
No, I think we agree. I've done a quick jot down. I think the motion has failed. That takes us then on to the recommendations on page 113, and the recommendations are that the council allocates an additional 1.269.179 from the council's capital programme to implement the preferred remediation strategy, subject to the positive outcome of the ENRAW funding application. We will now take a vote on the substantive motion. I think it might be better to go through the roll call again, unless anybody is telling me different.
Can we have a recorded vote on this, please, Chair?
That's what she just said.
Yes, certainly. Geraint, are you okay to record the vote? Gwyn, did you want to come in quickly? We shouldn't have any comments during the vote.
No, I put my hand up to her for the recorded vote. I thought so many people had to vote for it.
Okay, we will be asking over the microphone now. Geraint?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll start reading them out now. Councillor Ashley didn't come back. He's
Hello.
Back in.
Yeah.
Hi, Councillor Ashley. We're just doing a recorded vote now on agenda item 11.
Yeah, I got you now.
Councillor Ashley, the motion failed, so we're doing a vote on the recommendations, which are on page 113. And it's a recorded vote.
That's for the motion that's on there, is it?
Correct, and it's a recorded vote, Stuart.
If the motion's on the paper, it's yes.
We haven't started.
I can hardly
yet,
hear you.
We haven't started yet, Stuart. Can you hear me now?
That's a motion. The motion is for the British, is it?
Yes, we're on page 113 and we're voting on a recorded vote on the recommendations on
113. Sorry, I can hardly hear you. I'm just bear with me a moment, will you? My whole system's gone down. Recommendation, yes.
Okay, we've got your recommendation agreement.
Yeah, 4.
Thank you, Stuart. Geraint, on with the vote, please.
Councillor Bevan.
Thank you. I've got to get my system going now. Sorry about that.
Against.
Councillor Burnett.
For.
Councillor Karen.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm just going to mute. Actually, a sec, I couldn't. Right, Councillor Karen.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Constance.
For.
Councillor Cross.
For.
Councillor Daniels.
For.
Councillor Cathy Evans.
For.
Councillor Stephen Evans.
For.
Councillor Stuart Evans.
For.
Councillor Gordon.
For.
Councillor Haynes.
Against.
Councillor Haller.
For.
Councillor Gaynor James.
For.
Councillor Keith James.
Against.
Councillor Jenkins.
For.
Councillor Jeremiah.
For.
Councillor Faye Jones.
For.
Councillor Janet Jones.
For.
Councillor Nicholas Jones.
Against.
Councillor Peter Jones.
For.
Councillor Kemp.
For.
Councillor Killick.
For.
Councillor Molson.
For.
Councillor Owen.
For.
Councillor Parish.
For.
Councillor Powell.
For.
Councillor Preston.
For.
Councillor Seaborn.
For.
Councillor Slade.
Against.
Councillor Tew.
For.
Councillor Colette Thomas.
For.
Councillor Dave Thomas. And Councillor Yole.
For.
That's been agreed, Chair. Would you like the specific numbers?
No, thank you. I think we just agree that recommendation on page 113 is carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for an excellent debate and thank you for members' participation. This takes us to agenda item number 12, which is the Workplace Transformation Project on page 1.
Can we bring the other two members? Sorry to butt in. We've got to bring the two members in.
Thank you, Steve. I'm glad somebody's watching what I'm up to. Geraint, can you bring the other two members that were excluded for that item back in, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If you could just give me a couple of minutes. Councillor Clarkson, sorry. I know she had an issue, so she came in externally. So I'm gonna have to phone her and ask her to click back on her link.
Okay.
Cheers.
Madam Presiding Officer, in the interim, could I just request that, I know that motion actually failed, but could we maybe, regardless of that, request a members' seminar on this issue? Maybe it might be, a good idea anyway.
I think the recommendation from the sorry, I'm on feedback here. Was to actually have a debate and a member seminar on the capital programmes. I think Nigel's recommended that, and I think that is what's planned for the future. Nigel.
No, I think I promised to report back to July Council on the capital programme. I think Councillor Jones is saying, irrespective of what's happened with the vote, he would like a member seminar on the British scheme. I think that's what Councillor Jones is asking for, I think.
Yes, I would. I think it would do council quite good to separately debate this a little bit further. I accept the vote, and that's gone forward. But separately, I think it would do us a great deal of good to maybe discuss this, so that we can understand this matter more fully going forward. Because it's going to come back again.
I'm sure Joe will keep us updated on the project, and if there's a member seminar, I think members would probably find that useful. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair, just to let you know, both Councillors Clarkson and Davis are back in the meeting now.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Geraint. Welcome back both. We're on agenda item number 12, Workplace Transformation Project on page 123. Victor Madundula, I'm sorry if I've pronounced your name incorrectly, Victor. I only call you Victor normally. The Corporate Asset Management. Could you deliver your report, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I'm privileged to be one of those people that has as many pronunciations of their surname as people that I meet, so that is absolutely fine. As long as you're trying, I am grateful, so don't worry about it. Thank you very much. The Workplace Transformation Project aims to reduce our corporate office accommodation footprint by adopting a new way of working in which working from home will be more prevalent than office attendance for most staff, office-based staff at least. This comes out of the experiences during this pandemic, which was kind of enforced on us, but staff feedback about the experience have been very positive. And also, I would observe that this is something that a lot of other public sector organizations, including local authorities around us, are pursuing. There are several strands to the project, all of which are set out within the report, but in the interest of time, I'll only highlight the few aspects that have capital funding implications, because that is the reason why we're presenting this report to Council today. In the main, staff were based currently in the police station, Pontypool Police Station, as well as the majority of office staff were based at Tibline, will relocate to the civic centre as their office base on the days that they're not working from home. This will help sustain footfall for Pontypool Town Centre, among other benefits. Tibline building will be repurposed largely for central storage, replacing 4 or 5 buildings currently dispersed across the borough, which are being used for storage. Those buildings will then become surplus to requirements. On the other hand, we will vacate Pontypool Police Station when the lease expires in 2 months' time, in August. That will result in a revenue saving of just over £50,000 annually. To enable the proposed new uses of Civic Centre and Tibline to be implemented, there is a requirement for remodeling and refurbishment of the buildings. The report is coming before Council to seek approval for the proposed capital funding towards the physical works. The proposal is to utilise the rental saving from the police station to fund prudential borrowing of £500,000 towards the capital costs that will be incurred for the physical works. As per paragraph 4.14 of the report, Council is asked to formally approve inclusion of the Workplace Transformation Project within the capital programme, as well as the initial prudential borrowing to support it and the prudential indicators, which are set out in paragraph 4.15. I think that's essentially the substance of the report. I don't know if you want me to proceed to the recommendation, Madam Presiding Member, but the recommendation is paragraph 7.1. If I may hand back over to you, Madam Presiding Member. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. I've got Councillor Stewart Evans wishing to speak, and I'll bring you in after Victor to the recommendation. Stewart Evans first.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Thank you, Victor, for the presentation. We've read it. It's a very good report, and we have had information regarding this prior to this report. Just wondered about the consultation you done with staff, Victor. I mean, obviously there is a large majority in favour of the suggestions. I wonder if you could give us a percentage that weren't in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. I can't really say that there were representations that weren't in favour, such as I wouldn't be able to give a percentage as such. The anxieties that were expressed by some colleagues was that some may not have the accommodation or the environment to be able to work from home on a predominant basis. Those numbers appeared anecdotally from the consultations to be relatively small. We're currently in the process of undertaking a further exercise to actually identify individuals who are in that category, and we intend to make an exception for those to be able to accommodate them within the buildings on a full-time basis. But for the majority of staff, I mean, if I would hazard a guess, I would say the famous 99.9%. For the majority of staff working from home for part of the time was certainly something that they welcomed and were excited about.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Stuart. Hugh Bevan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It seems welcome, this in the report, that the council has engaged with staff and consulted with them regarding their preferences going forwards. And I think this blended solution that's being proposed that gives staff the option to have a mix of working from home and spending some time in the office is the right way to proceed. I did have a question. I'm not sure if it's best suited to Victor or to Nigel Aurelius, actually, but the report references a loan of 500,000 and talks about timeframes for repayment. And also there's this one-off request now from capital funding. But under the key messages on the report on page 123, as a result of the proposed changes, i.e. the relocation of staff into different offices, it actually says that as a result of once all the staff have moved and redeployed to different office spaces, it says that it will render 4 operational buildings to be deemed surplus to requirements. So my question is in relation to that. In terms of time frames, what is the expected time frames and what are the plans for those 4 operational buildings which will become surplus to requirements going forwards? Presumably they can be disposed of and that will recoup some or probably all or more of the costs that we've actually incurred by undertaking the process. So if I could get some additional commentary, please, regarding the potential disposal of those 4 assets. Thank you.
Victor, do you want to come back in?
Yes, I can, Madam Presiding Member, thank you. In terms of timescales, those buildings will become available at the very end of the project. The last phase of the work streams that will be undertaken will be moving the storage from wherever it is now to Tibline. So it'll be the last thing. At that point, we will have needed to have incurred whatever costs are required to implement the proposals. So that there's a timing issue there. The funding that is proposed, the 500,000 that we're mentioning, is coming out of the rental saving from Pontypool Police Station. So it is almost like a self-funding project to that extent. I can't comment in terms of what the utilization will be for the capital proceeds from the sale of the 4 buildings. That will then be a decision for taken as part of the capital project in its entirety. So the funding that we require is more immediate, and we think there is a solution in using the savings from the police station rental. But that doesn't forestall the fact that there will be savings at the end when we dispose of the other buildings, and the funding then can be used in whatever way members deem best at the time. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly Preston, do you want to come in, please?
Yes, thank you, Rose. Firstly, can I just thank everyone involved in this report? It's a substantial piece of work. It's an ambitious project with many benefits. I'm sure, alongside blending work in between home and office, the improved facilities at both the Civic Centre and Tibline will create a more modern working environment and will help promote better work-life balance and well-being amongst this council's dedicated workforce. With more services being provided from the Civic Centre as well, I feel it's really important, and Victor's already touched on that, we'll retain a good level of footfall for Pontypool Town Centre, and it will also mean that residents will see an improved front of house service and will visit the Civic Centre for most of the services currently based at Tibline. So, that's really positive. I'm also really pleased to see that there'll be work undertaken to reduce the use of paper, moving to digitalisation of essential records, and that we'll see opportunities for improving active travel. And the project will also look to minimise waste, cost and environmental impact by utilising current furniture, either in its current format or by having it upcycled and reinstalled. So those environmental things are really important as well. Stuart mentioned and Victor mentioned about the staff engagement and consultation, and I think that's absolutely vital with any proposed change to the workplace like this. I mean, it is the staff that it affects more than anyone. So I'm really reassured to see that there's been significant staff engagement on these proposals, and that engagement resulted in the original proposals being modified. I'm also reassured by the point that Stuart made and Victor's response that any individuals who may have issues with the new way of working will be supported. So, you know, COVID has brought many difficulties, but it's brought some real opportunities for organisations like us to look at the way we do things, the way we work and the way we provide services. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight those things really and just say thank you. It is a substantial piece of work and it's a really good report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Preston. Councillor Ron Burnett.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the report, Victor. I think my questions have actually been answered through the last couple of comments. One of my concerns would have been ongoing monitoring, but Kelly just said, but supporting staff. We could see this coming. It's a different way of working, and it's not just Torfaen, it's throughout the country. Officers doing it, but I've heard from other people in companies that there are some people suffering from working from home because they're in a different environment. And as it said, Kelly just said, as long as people are supported and monitored on the ongoing process, because it's a change for everybody, and we've had a good year of it now, so people are settled in, and it's a new way of working. But I just hope that people are monitored ongoing and just to check that they're coping with this. And thank you for the report, Victor.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Councillor Fay-Jones.
I would just like to comment that this is an excellent report and thank you for it, Victor. I'm just a little bit concerned though that as COVID recedes and we go to a more normal world, when we have meetings such as Foster Panel, which I think would be better, probably everybody would agree, face to face when this can happen again, is there going to be enough space for meetings that need to take place? Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll take Councillor Colette Thomas's question.
Thank you. I'd just like to refer to 4.8, the benefits of the changes. I'm very pleased to see there one of the benefits, the co-location of the Cabinet and corporate leadership team on the same floor. So I think that's an excellent move. And can I also say, very pleased to see that we'll be looking at making the atrium space we have there in the Civic Centre more welcoming. That's also a very, very, very good idea. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you. Before I bring in officers and the exec member again, if they want to, I'll just say I participated in one of the consultation and I thought it was an excellent way to consult with staff. I did actually put a recommendation in, having had 2 knee replacements, that were actually suitable seating for disabled people, not too low, not too high, and space for wheelchairs. So if we can think about that during trying to accommodate everybody is a difficult thing, but people with disabilities certainly have their issues. Thank you. Victor, do you want to come back in now, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Presiding Chair, and thanks for the questions that have come in as well as the comments. And perhaps I should also express my gratitude to the members who took part in the consultation. There were a number of members took part and made valuable contributions, and that was very pleasing from our point of view that our engagement had gone that far. So we're very grateful for the participation. Thank you. With regards to meeting rooms, there is no intention to reduce the availability of meeting rooms. So the meetings that we have at the moment will stay, at least in terms of numbers. The proposal that cabinet members locate all together actually frees the rooms that are currently used by individual cabinet members to become meeting rooms. So we should have an increase rather than a reduction in meeting rooms. So I don't think there should be necessarily any shortage of meeting rooms. Certainly it won't be worse than it is at the moment. That is, and in terms of the utilization of even the space that will be used by various services, the emphasis that is being put forward is that on the days that people are coming to the office, they're coming more for collaboration, not to sit behind their laptop in the same way that they might do at home, as far as possible. There'll be areas where that's not necessarily applicable. But the idea is to incorporate even more areas where people can have formal meetings or incidental discussions or group work. So we're moving more towards more meeting rooms rather than less meeting rooms, would be my response to that. Thank you. And the other 2 points about co-location of cabinet members and work to the atrium, I can only say that I'm glad to hear that it's being seen as a positive thing by members. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor. I don't see any other comments. Faye, you not wanting to come back on that, or you haven't removed your hand, is it? Okay.
No, I haven't removed my hand, but that answered that fully. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The recommendations then are on page 130, and can I ask members whether they agree the recommendations? Yeah, any against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much, members. That takes us to agenda item 13, which is the Blind Brand Brook, that's a mouthful, flood alleviation scheme in Brookland Park, Pontywydd. Requesting funding from the council's capital funding. Is there anybody with an interest in this that needs to leave the meeting at the moment? Don't think so. Okay, Stephen Jarrett, the head of Highways, Transportation and Property. Could you deliver the report for us, please?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. This is a report primarily to ask Council for funding to be used as a 15% contribution, which equates to £95,500 toward a Welsh Government grant that we've secured for the construction of a flood alleviation scheme on the Blind Brand Brook in Cwmbran, and to delegate powers to the Chief Officer to award. Just to run through quickly the background of the scheme, Madam Presiding Member, the scheme was highlighted during modelling undertaken by Natural Resources Wales, which showed that if the culvert entrance in Brookland Park becomes blocked or capacity is exceeded, the flood path for that water will have a significant effect on the Northville area and towards Morrison's. We have been discussing the modelling with Natural Resources Wales, and with the understanding sought funding to design and construct a scheme to alleviate against this issue. The scheme principally consists of the improvement of the inlet conditions at Brookland Park and the culverting of a section of open watercourse in Avondale Business Park. The scheme has been tendered and we are ready to award, subject to the formal approval of the Welsh Government grant offer, which they will hopefully release as soon as the council decision has been made for our contribution. That's all I think I need to say about the report, Madam Presiding Officer. I'm happy to take questions or take you to the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I've got Councillor Stuart Ashley wishing to speak.
Yes, I would like to talk very much in favour of this, as Stephen knows and Mark Strickland knows. The last time we had serious storm, this got blocked up well and truly, and it ran down. It's done it a fair few times. Ran down Cwmbran Drive, went through the playground at Maindy and down the little close walk there. And over the years, they've managed to put a drain in the walk down off Warefield Crescent outside school. They've stopped it running down the playground, and this is just a final bit on it. I hope it does cure it, because it's run like the stream's been diverted down Cwmbran Drive and end up by the Workman's Club. So for other members, this is a serious problem. I had quite a photograph the last time. It looked like the stream was running completely down Cwmbran Drive for about a quarter of a mile. So the officers have come up with a solution. It does cost money. It's a very sensible solution as far as I can see. I had on Facebook, there was the last time this happened, there was a stream running down through Northville into the drain hole that they managed to put in, which stopped the flooding problem in Northville. For years, there was actually storm barriers in Northville, which stopped part of the problem. And it's amazing noise as it went down there, but this is the final bit. I hope it does cure it. The Bran Brook, as what we call it, not Blind Brand Brook, but it comes down off the mountain from the reservoir all the way down, and it's quite a noticeable feature of both Upper Cwmbran and Pontywydd. It's what carved it all out. It's an innocuous little stream at times, but when it goes like hell. So no, thank you very much for putting this up, and I would like to propose it when I get the opportunity, Madam Presiding Officer, because I think this is sorely needed, and hopefully
thank you, Stuart. Stuart Evans.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. And this is a strange one I'm going to ask you now, Steve. I know we've got a duty of care to resolve this problem, but can we share some of the costs with some of the associated areas affected? I'm referring specifically to Morrison's. Are we allowed to do that?
That probably wouldn't be applicable in this case, Councillor Evans, because Morrison's would be affected by the flooding that would be potentially caused as a result of our blockage of our culverts and things like that. So this is really our responsibility, along with Welsh Government, to look to resolve.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Stuart. Councillor Hugh Bevan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to second Councillor Ashley's proposal to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. My apologies, the mic was just clicking on and off. No other speakers. Stephen, do you want to take us to the recommendations, which is on page 134 on 8.1?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. So the recommendations are there, which is to approve up to £95,500 from Council's capital programme to ensure that the Blind Brook flood alleviation scheme is constructed and delivered within this current financial year, and that upon formal confirmation of flood risk grant funding from Welsh Government, to delegate approval to the Chief Officer in Neighbourhoods Planning and Public Protection to award the contract for that flood alleviation scheme. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And that'll take members to the vote. Can I ask whether members agree with the recommendations?
Yeah, 4.
Anybody against the recommendations? Any abstentions? That is carried. Thank you very much. That takes us to agenda item 14, which is the freedom of the borough, the Royal British Legion, which is on page 141. Councillor Richard Clark, the Deputy Leader, could you introduce the report, please?
Chair, very opportune given my remarks at the beginning of this meeting in relation to the Armed Forces Week. The freedom of the borough is the highest honour that this council can award any individual or any organisation. It is the 100th anniversary of the Royal British Legion, and I know many members are involved, if not members, of the Royal British Legion, and will be aware that it is not just the Poppy Appeal and November the 11th that they deal with. They are a lifeline to our armed forces community, both serving soldiers, reservists and veterans, covering many aspects of life for those individuals and the wider services community. So before I pass on to Alan Vernon-Jones to detail the report, I would hope members can fully support it, and it doesn't get a 3/4 majority, it gets a unanimous majority to support the work of the Legion and the work that it does within our community, and to show them our appreciation by granting them our highest honour. I think Alan Vernon-Jones wants to go through the report at this stage, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Alan?
Thank you, Councillor Clark and presiding member. Yes, I'd like to present the report. The purpose of the report is to award the 3 branches of the Royal British Legion within Torfaen, which is Blaenavon, Pontypool and Pontnewydd, with the honour of Freeman of the Borough. This is a joint effort through the Regional Armed Forces officer based in Caerphilly, but works across the Greater Gwent footprint, to work with the 5 authorities within that region to award in each respect each branch of the British Legion the freedom of the particular boroughs. to date, and as of last night, Caerphilly and Monmouthshire have agreed through their councils to award their British Legion branches the honour. Blaenau Gwent and Newport have agreed in principle, but are gaining council approval as we speak. There have been three other, over the last 40 years, there have been three other Freedom of the Boroughs for Torfaen. Back in 1978, Councillor Fred Good was awarded Freedom of the Borough, and then again in 2005, the Royal Monmouthshire Engineers, and in 2009, the Royal Welsh as well. So, you know, we have a tradition here of recognising the work of individuals and organisations for their work. And, you know, I think this is apt that we, you know, on Armed Forces Week as well, honour the charitable work of the organisation of the Royal British Legion. And yeah, I'd like to propose that, President Member.
Thank you very much, Alan. Are there any comments from members? I can't see any. Oh, Stuart Ashley. Councillor Stuart Ashley. Oh, sorry, Councillor Nicholas Jones.
Yes, thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I just want, firstly, I want to say I'm very, very much in favour of this, but I just want to ask a question. On section 4.1, section 2495 of the Local Government Act, a borough council can grant the freedom of the borough to persons of distinction and persons who have, etc., etc. It doesn't mention organisations. I just want to make sure that it is within our rights to actually confer this. I hope it is, but I'd just like some clarification if I could, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Hugh Bevan. We have already given an organisation the freedom of the borough in the past. Councillor Richard Clark, do you want to come in?
I was just going to add to what you said. As Alan said, we have given it to regiments before. It is within the power. I think the person speaks about the legal person, and the Royal British Legion has legal person status. So I believe, like other regiments, although the British Legion isn't a regiment, it has legal personality, and as such is covered by that enactment, unless Justin advises me otherwise.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for that reassurance. It's really good news to hear that. Thank you.
Councillor Janet Jones.
I would endorse and support this application. As a member of Blaenavon Royal British Legion, I've observed the work, the tremendous work that the organisations throughout the borough do for our armed forces, and I think it's very appropriate to conduct it at this particular time.
Thank you, Janet. Councillor Stuart Ashley.
Sorry, I was mucking around with my thing. I mean, they're a tremendous bunch of people. To be honest, I've walked around on the usual parade and all the other things, both as community councillor and a borough councillor, and I can't praise them highly enough. They're there consistently doing it, but at all ends of our borough, and the amount of effort they put in there, and we had some very, very long-serving members in all aspects of it. No, I praise them very highly indeed. I think well deserved.
Thank you, Councillor Ashley. Councillor Stuart Evans.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I do wholeheartedly support this recommendation for the tireless work that the British Legion do throughout the borough. It's just a sad occasion, as Richard Clark mentioned earlier, about Mr. Freeman. He would have been really thrilled to hear this news. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
Yeah, thank you. I know my father was an early member of the British Legion, as a lot of others in the borough, and I think they're very deserved of this high award. They've had a difficult last times with their fundraising, but they do ensure to help a lot of elderly people within our borough, and I welcome this report. And that takes us to the recommendations, if there's no other speakers. And the recommendation is on page 143 and 8.1, and it's recommended that the freedom of the borough is awarded to the Royal British Legion in recognition of their 100th year anniversary, and to honour the charitable work of the organisation supporting ex-servicemen and women and their families within the borough. It is recommended that the vote be taken by council. 2/3 majority of the council is required in order to pass this resolution. Can I ask for all those members in favour?
4.
Thank you. I'm not expecting anybody against.
4.
And no abstentions. Thank you very much. That's carried. And our very best wishes go to the Royal British Legion on their 100th anniversary.
Thank you very much.
That takes us to agenda item 15, the online petition, road resurfacing for Ton Road off Two Locks, Cumbran, page 145. Stephen Jarrett, Head of Highways, Transportation and Property, could you deliver the report, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Yeah, this is a report to respond to a petition presented to Council by Councillor Peter Jones requesting the resurfacing of Ton Road, Cumbran. It is recognised that the highway asset is of primary importance to all users in Torfaen, and in maintaining the asset, the council uses its policy document, which is the Highways Asset Management Plan. For carriageway resurfacing, sites are assessed using a number of factors as appropriate. Potential schemes are costed and prioritised, and then schemes are implemented as budget allows. Ton Road was actually prioritised for treatment in 2021, but unfortunately at that time fell just below the line of available budget, so wasn't able to be implemented as part of the original programme. However, in March 2021, further Welsh Government funding became available, and the council was able to undertake a further 4 resurfacing schemes, which enabled Ton Road, having previously been prioritised and not actually as a result of the petition, to be resurfaced, and that work is actually now completed. Happy to take any questions, Madam Presiding Member. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Amanda Owen and Councillor Ron Burnett wishing to speak. Councillor Colette Thomas came in then. Amanda.
Thank you, Rose. It's just to echo Steve's comments and say this has been a long-standing issue, and I know that the 3 ward councillors have been pushing for the resurfacing of this road for many, many years. And like Steve said, it was prioritised last summer. We were just waiting for funding. It just happened that the funding came in March 21. The work was carried out. Comments I've received has been saying what a very good job has been done, and people seem to be happy that it's all been completed. But as the report noted, highway schemes have and will be undertaken by the council's HAMP process. We do welcome petitions, but they do not expedite schemes like this. So it's just thanks to all officers as well for the work.
Thank you. Councillor Ron Burnett. Councillor Ron Burnett, are you with us?
Sorry, Chair, my mic's the same as yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Mandy, and the officers for your response and the report on Ton Road. As everyone can see, it's self-explanatory and how the process works and how work gets done. And I hope it helps some members understand the process. As the report says, the Ton Road programme has been going on for a long time, and long before this petition was ever submitted. I'm sure many people already knew that anyway before the petition went in. Ward members, we have been working hard on this project, as you know, for quite a few years now. As people will know as well, we've had the footpath in Sandy Brook Park resurfaced. This was through the Routes to School programme, nothing to do with any petition whatsoever, and it wasn't influenced by it. We've also had, as you know, a park they built in the Sandy Brook Park, which we know sadly has been slowly destroyed by fire or whatever they're doing to it. And amongst all this, there's been interference from other ward members making mischief and interfering with our ward. As members of the ward, we will not tolerate this in future, and we will take it through the local protocol route. And believe it or not, sadly, someone's even set up a Facebook fake page, they call them, and they supported the petition. And all I say to that person, if you can't use your real name, grow up and shut up. Nobody's taking any notice.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. We'll keep it.
Yeah, they're just making mischief. Thank you very much.
Councillor Colette Thomas.
Thank you. Can I thank all the officers involved in this process of the refurbishment of Ton Road. The contractors did an excellent job on the road, and I've had a lot of good comments from residents thanking you for the work. And I'd just like to say that the contractors were very, very considerate of all residents' needs during the time. So thank you very much to all concerned.
Thank you, Councillor Collett Thomas. Councillor Peter Jones.
I was muted then. As the person who presented the petition, I've also had very positive feedback from members, so I'd just like to say thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Jones. I don't see any other speakers. Takes us to the recommendation, which is on page 147.
Chair, could I come in briefly? I did try to raise my hands, but it didn't.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on the statement that Councillor Burnett made regarding the AMP process. I think we could all do reminding of the process, because the criteria is quite strict. So I think, Chair, Madam Presiding Officer, I should say, I think we could all do with a reminder of Steve Jarrett of the process.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we do all have a code of conduct to abide by, so thank you for that reminder. The recommendations on page 147, 8.1 is that the main petitioner be informed that Ton Road was resurfaced based on assessment carried out as part of the prioritisation of carriageway resurfacing works for the Council's 2021 programme, and due to the availability of additional grant funding from the Welsh Government. Can I ask if all those are in favour for that recommendation? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. I'm now going to ask Lyndon Puddy if he's in the meeting to remove himself for the next item, please.
Presiding member, I understand is not in the meeting.
Right, thank you, Justine. Agenda item 16, which is the interim arrangements for the returning officer and electoral registration officer, which is on page 149. Nigel Aurelius, Assistant Chief Executive, could you deliver the report for us, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very quick. You've previously approved interim arrangements allowing Lyndon to be the returning officer and electoral registrations officer. This report is suggesting that those arrangements, or the interim arrangements, are extended until the 31st of December 2021. And on Stephen, the new Chief Executive's arrival, sometime between then and December, we will bring back a report on the permanent arrangements. But we have to have a returning officer and electoral registration officer, and this report just proposes that Lyndon continue in that role until the 31st of December. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Clark, you wish to speak?
Chair, can I support that proposal? As the acting chief executive advises us, it is a position that we require and we can look at further. I do have to say about Lyndon, God bless him, he's had to carry out Welsh Assembly, Police and Crime Commissioner, 3 by-elections. There's probably a community council election in there that I've missed, and he's had to do it during the COVID crisis. So what a baptism of fire he's had, and the fact that he's still prepared to do it, good luck to him. So I fully support the recommendation that we carry on with Lyndon until a future report comes to us.
Thank you, Richard. I've got Hugh Bevan wishing to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Richard Clark may have kind of preempted this question that I was going to put. I just want to say I'm fully supportive of Lyndon carrying on in the post. I was just going to ask a question, please, surrounding the end date. Given that we've got local government elections in May of next year, I'm fully supportive of Lyndon continuing in the role, but I wondered why the end date had been set at the 31st of December this year. Councillor Clark might have kind of addressed that in his commentary earlier, that it's because he's had to undertake so much already, but I wondered if there was a particular reason for that end date and why Lyndon couldn't be approved at this stage to continue on through the local government elections next May.
Can I come back on that one, Chair?
Certainly.
The date has been chosen just to give sufficient time for the new chief executive to consider how he wants to manage this going forward. He may choose that he wants to, assume the role of returning officer, as Alison did, or he may choose to leave it with Lyndon. It's a date purely to allow those conversations to take place and not to leave us exposed.
Okay, thank you, Nigel.
Thank you. Councillor John Killick.
Yeah, thanks, Presiding Officer. I just wanted to say I fully support this, and just to compliment Lyndon on the work that he did at the by-elections a couple of months ago, particularly given that I'm aware that he had a number of other things, as Councillor Clark just mentioned, going on at the same time, and I think he got precious little sleep, but my compliments to him.
Yeah, I would agree. Lyndon Puddy's the man to go to, and we thank him for all his work. I think there's a few items missing off the list that was mentioned as well, but thank you very much. I'll take you to the recommendation, which is on page 150, which is at 6.1. It's recommended that the council approve the continuing appointment of Lyndon Puddy, Head of Public Service Support Unit, as interim returning officer and interim electoral registrations officer until the 31st of December 2021. All those in favour?
Yep. For.
Anybody against? Any abstentions? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. That takes us to agenda item number 17, the petition opposing the new housing development at Llanfrecffer Grange. That's on page 151. Justine Cass, Deputy Monitoring Officer, please could you introduce this item?
Thank you, Presiding Member. It's not so much an introduction to the report. It's just being able to have the opportunity to repeat my advice. What I have said in the previous email is that this report is for noting only. Members, I'm not instructing you, I am just advising that it's not appropriate for members to enter into a debate about the merits of including this site within the strategy. Planning legislation places a legal duty on local authorities to consider representations in relation to particular sites, and the strategy as a whole, which is part of the legal process. This petition will be considered in due course. Members, please, you need to be, you need to avoid any appearance of bias or having predetermined views, because in time the RLDP will go before council for debate. Thank you very much, Presiding Member.
Thank you, Justine. I've got Richard Lewis. Do you wish to say anything on this?
Yes, please, Madam Presiding Member. Just a short introduction to the report, if I may.
Please.
The members approved the replacement local development plan, or known as the RLDP preferred strategy, in September 2020 for consultation. The consultation was carried out from November 2020 to April 2021. Now, the petition before members was submitted as part of that consultation process, and the comments are welcomed. The preparation of the RLDP must follow a statutory process, and the petition will now need to be fully considered as part of that process, along with other responses. Therefore, the report in front of members today is for noting only. Excuse me. Members will have the opportunity to consider the whole preferred strategy and deposit plan as part of the statutory process. The next stage of the RLDP is to consider all the comments that have been made on the preferred strategy, and a full report on this public consultation, along with the deposit plan, will be presented to council in due course for full consideration. We're taking time at the moment just to reflect on the comments that have been made. We've requested more information on the proposed sites and will be carrying out further studies. We also intend to hold a members seminar shortly, probably in July, to provide an update on the preferred strategy, and there'll be further public engagement on the strategic sites before the deposit plan is prepared. Although the petition is currently before members opposing the Llanfrecffer site, it's too early to make any decisions around this at the moment, but as I've mentioned, it will be fully considered as part of the statutory process. And so, as stated in the recommendation, we will inform the head petitioner that the representations have been duly logged and they will be considered as part of the RLDP process. Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Thank you, Richard. At this point, I need to remind members of the advice from the Deputy Monitoring Officer. You may well forgo your right to vote if you speak for or against this. And I've got Hugh Bevan wishing to speak. Hugh?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I note the commentary in the report that says that procedurally this is not the appropriate point within the RLDP process to consider and reject particular sites. I also note the legal advice that's been given by Justine. Before I put a couple of questions which are based on clarity on the report that's been brought forward to us today, I just want to confirm to yourself and to other parties that I have consulted with Nancy, who in turn consulted with Justine with regards to the questions that I wish to put forward today, noting the constraints, legal constraints about predetermination. The first question is concerning an omission from the report where it's got action to be taken following the decision, and I welcome the fact that the Principal Planning Officer has set out the way forward, in that there will be a full response provided to members of the public and all of those who signed the petition that was submitted back in March. And it also states that there will be a preparation and publication of the final draft of the deposit plan, which will also be made available to the public, and then there will be a further period of public consultation on the final plan. The report, though, on 154, although it sets out the way forwards, unfortunately, it does not include any timeframes for when one could expect this to be made available to members of the public. And I'm sure the petitioners, the press, and members of the public and interested parties would welcome some additional information surrounding the proposed timeframes going forwards for when they can expect to receive the report back on the consultation process and when we can expect to see the final draft plan. So it was the first thing is regarding the time frames. And the second point I wish to make, again, which is focusing on the report as presented today. The report recognises on the top of page 153, the strategic policy S3, there's 4 strategic sites that are referenced there. It is Pontypool College, Pontypool, Llantarnam Business Park, Cwmbran, Llanfrecffa Strategic Action Area, and Craigiefelin Strategic Action Area in New Inn. So it's integral to the delivery of the plan that this includes 4 strategic sites. However, under implications, specific on page 154, section 6, paragraph 6.1, makes specific reference only to the Llanfrecffa strategic site and not the other strategic sites. It also says that this is integral to the delivery of the current local development plan strategy. Now, one would reasonably expect, and I use that reasonable in terms of the legal sense, that other sites would be considered as alternatives. Now, I'm not going to get into detailed debate about the merits of one site over and above the other, because we've been advised not to do that at this stage, and there will be an opportunity to discuss that both at the members' seminar and when the final plan is brought before full council for members to debate. But I just wanted to ask about the implications and whether consideration is being given at this stage, given the strength of public opposition to the initial plan, that planning officers are evaluating other sites as part of the consideration process before the final plan is brought back before members. Thank you. I know that's quite long-winded. Thank you.
Councillor Bevan, agenda item 17 is a petition opposing the new housing development. I don't wish to go into any debate on the LDP or anything else. And I think we can answer your question on timescales if that's available.
Yes, certainly, Madam Presiding Member. In terms of timeframes, we have to get approval from the council, first of all, for a timetable for the RLDP, which we've had at the beginning of last year. We also, and then again at the end, in about September of last year, because of the COVID restrictions, we also get approval for that from Welsh Government. Now, at the moment, the last approval that we've had for the timetable, we are not in conformity with it at the moment because COVID has hit us. We've had a long period of consultation, an extended one, so we are not in accordance with the current timetable. We've been discussing this with Welsh Government. We've also taken note of the considerable opposition to the strategic site from residents. And so we are taking some time to consider those properly. We've talked to Welsh Government about an amended timetable, and we've agreed that we will think about that towards the end of this year. So we will need to be doing a report for council, probably in November, towards the end of the year, on a new timetable that we're proposing, taking account of the elections as well, of course. And that then will have to be approved by council, and if council approve it, it'll have to be approved by Welsh Government as well. So we're not in a position at the moment to say exactly when these things will take place, only that we will be running a seminar for members on the preferred strategy just to refresh everything, let members know exactly where we are, report on the recommendations that on the representations we've received. And then further in the year, we will be coming back to members with an amended timetable. I hope that helps to answer the timeframe response.
Thank you, Richard.
Yes, thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much. No other speakers. I'll take you to the recommendations, which are on page 155. And this is on 8.1 for members to note that the petitioners will be informed through a letter from the head of planning and development that their representations and views have been logged and will be fully considered as part of the statutory review of the consultation process responses to the RLDP preferred strategy and included in the consultation report. Members, are you happy to note this report, please? Anybody against? Anybody, any abstentions? Thank you. That report is for noting. That takes us to agenda item number 18, the Welsh Language Standards Annual Report. And Alan Vernon-Jones, in another capacity, will you please deliver the report?
Thank you very much, Presiding Member, and yeah, thank you very much. Another hat on.
Yes.
I have pleasure in presenting the annual Welsh Language Compliance Report on the Welsh Language Standards. Standards have been in force since 2016, and this is the 5th report on the Welsh Language Regulations. The Council, as specified within the standards, are required to report on the 5 main areas, which are compliance of the service, policy and organisational standards, complaints and any investigations carried out by the Welsh Language Commissioner, Welsh language skills of Torfaen Council staff, any training provided to staff through the medium of Welsh, and the recruitment of staff through with Welsh language skills. I'll just briefly touch on them. All the details are within the report, but I will touch on a few points. The council has performed well over the last year. The period of the report covers is wholly covered by the pandemic, unfortunately, but we continued to provide services to Welsh speakers and those who required it. We reissued guidance to staff as a reminder of the requirements to staff and members. You'll see from the report that the statistics around the website and the telephone service, the Welsh language line that we have here in Torfaen, is very low. We will promote that further in the next year, just to ascertain that we are getting value for money and that we are, proportionately making sure that we're able to deliver Welsh language services, as we said, to those who require it. 14 members of staff attended Welsh language training. Moving on to complaints, no complaints were received by the corporate complaints team, and no investigations were carried out by the Welsh Language Commissioner. In terms of Welsh language skills, you'll see from the report that 14% of the workforce have are able to speak Welsh. And I think this reflects well of the 9.8 of Torfaen residents, according to the 2011 census, who are able to speak Welsh. So I think our workforce do reflect well the community that we represent. Recruitment of staff, this will be looked at in more detail. You can see that it's only a small proportion that we put desirable or essential within job advertisements. So what we will do is, in the next year, we will look at in more detail identify why posts are not advertised with Welsh language skills, which is easily done. We can ask for desirable. Essential will be difficult to fill in this corner of Wales, but I'm sure we can. There's no reason why we can't put desirable within advertisements. The achievements, as I said, despite the difficulties of the pandemic, we were able to hold an online event, Torfwyl, which is Torfaen Festival, was held to celebrate St David's Day, and this was done in collaboration with Mentoriaeth, the local Mentoriaeth of Torfaen, Mynwy and Blaen y Gwent, and I've been told that there were over 6,000 viewers of that throughout the day, so that's very good news. Integrating the Welsh language into day-to-day functions is one of the priorities we were trying to do over the course of the last year. This is mostly thanks to the Welsh Language Coordination Group, which we have within Torfaen, which represents with representatives in there of all the service areas, and for their help in monitoring the compliance with the Welsh language standards in each service area. And diolch, that's all I have for now. I'm happy to take any questions on the report, and then go on forward to the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Alan. Diolch yn fawr. Any questions from members? No. Thank you very much. That takes us to the recommendation on page 168. And the recommendation is at 11.1 and that the annual report 2021 is approved and publicised in line with the Welsh language standards. All those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstention? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much.
Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. Agenda item 19, which is the nominations to outside bodies. In-year update, June 2021, on page 185. Nancy Salkeld, Acting Head of Democratic Services. Are you there to be able to give your report, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. This is just a very short update report to changes to nominations for outside bodies. I've got two to report. The Gwent Police Crime and Disorder Panel Councillor Emma Rapier has stood down and Councillor Gwyn Jenkins has been appointed to replace her. And the Green Meadow Community Farm Shadow Board, Councillor Faye Jones has stood down. At the time of publishing the papers, there was a vacancy, so I think there's an update coming from one of the councillors now.
Thank you, Nancy. Councillor Richard Clark, I believe.
I like being called one of the councillors. That's interesting. Thank you, Nancy. In terms of Green Meadow Farm, I would like to propose Councillor Stephen Evans of Upper Cwmbran to be the replacement. Nancy referred to the Police and Crime Commissioner position. We also have Mike Jeremiah having retired from that, and I think it's only right and proper that we thank Mike for his service on that committee. I know he reluctantly had to come off it, and obviously wish Gwyn every success, but thank Mike and Emma Rapier for the short period that she was on there for the work that she's done. So I would like that to go on record and propose Steve Evans as the Green Meadow Farm representative. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. That takes us to the recommendation on page 185 to note that those changes. Are the members happy to note those changes? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. It's carried.
Thank you.
Sorry. Agenda item number 20, motions on notice. There's a motion 1. Councillor Janet Jones, can you move and explain your motion for us, please, and show as shown on page 189 of the agenda. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you. I ask that the council urgently consider supporting the RSPCA and put forward the notice of motion that this council resolves that A, all public displays be advertised in advance of the event, allowing residents to take necessary precautions for both animals and the vulnerable. B, the council promotes an awareness campaign about the impact of fireworks. C, the council writes to the Welsh Government and urges them to use everything at their disposal to mitigate any negative impacts on both animals and vulnerable residents of the hosting of displays, as well as introducing legislation limiting the maximum noise limit of fireworks to 90 decibels for those sold to public for displays. And D, that the council encourages local suppliers to stock quieter fireworks. In supporting this motion and the Bang Out of Order campaign, it is to be hoped that measures will go some way to mitigating the devastating impact of fireworks on animals, the vulnerable and the elderly residents in our community, as well as highlighting the council's support for animal welfare. Please, I urge you to act positively on this motion. Just briefly, the Bang Out of Order campaign is a campaign run by RSPCA Cymru and calls for action to be taken to mitigate and limit the unnecessary and avoidable stress on animals at various times of the year. The RSPCA wants to see limits of sales of fireworks to the public on 4 celebration days throughout the year, namely Bonfire Night, New Year's Eve, Chinese New Year and Diwali. The rationale is on average over 400 calls are made to the RSPCA regarding the use of fireworks, and 62% of these relate to the disastrous effects they have on animals by loud bangs and flashing bright lights. 2020 saw an increase of approximately 12% in private fireworks displays in predominantly residential areas, where not only pets and wildlife were affected, but also the vulnerable and elderly residents of our communities, which resulted in added pressure on our NHS, our police and our fire services. This highlights the irresponsible use of fireworks, and polling suggests that 67% of residents in Wales believe that the law around fireworks needs to be changed to better protect animals. 10 out of our 22 local authorities have already taken action on fireworks. However, more measures are needed to mitigate the impact they have, again, on both animals and the vulnerable of our community. This is indeed a concern for all our councillors, and I ask that here in Torfaen, the council urgently considers supporting the RSPCA and offers our support for this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that.
Yeah, I second it. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Do you wish to debate this, members? I see Councillor Kelly Preston's hand up and Councillor Peter Jones' hand up, so that's a yes. Councillor Kelly Preston, did you want to come in, or Peter Jones?
Yes, if I can, Chair. I just firstly wanted to thank Janet for bringing this motion to council today. I'm fully and wholly supportive of the motion. As a dog owner and an absolute animal lover, I know only too well the impact that fireworks can have on animals. I've spent many a night trying to comfort a very distressed, shaking, frothing at the mouth dog, and tried numerous different things to try and help. It's deeply upsetting, and I think the issue for me is, I don't know, perhaps I'm getting old saying this now, but many years ago fireworks seemed to last on firework nights. Now we see them firework nights, the weekends, you know, they seem to roll right through to New Year. As a local councillor, I've lost count of the number of complaints I've had around fireworks going off in the early hours, particularly where we are, you know, in Cwmbran, that urban environment. They're going off in housing estates. And as Janet said, it's not just animals they affect, there are vulnerable residents they affect as well, the elderly, people with PTSD I've had examples of. There are many people they affect. So anything that we can do to promote safer and better use of fireworks, you know, I am wholly and fully supportive behind. I do think the law needs to be firmer and stricter. Organised displays for me is the way forward, but you know that's out of our control as such. So where we are today, I fully support the motion, and thank you, Janet, for bringing that to us today.
Thank you very much. Councillor Peter Jones.
Janet, I'd like to thank you for bringing forward this motion, and which I also fully support. And actually, Janet, the asks in the motion, the A, B, C and D, are quite modest really, but it's a real step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stuart Evans.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I wholeheartedly support Janet's motion here. I hear what you're saying about the animals. That's very bad in itself, but I'm very concerned about the elderly in our communities as well. And the problem being is, and as Kelly says, perhaps it's a sign of us getting older, but these fireworks seems to be getting louder every year, you know, and I fully support this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen Evans.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I fully support this, and when I'm at the Fire Authority, I will be raising this, the essence of this motion to try and see if we can find some extra support with the fire service. That's, you know, at the moment I will discuss with them if we can find a way forward.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Sue Molson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Janet, for bringing this motion forward. I noticed last year all through the lockdowns, when it came to bonfire night, New Year's Eve, more residents were having fireworks in the garden, just not normal fireworks. They were horrendous fireworks, and they were going on till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So thank you for bringing this.
Thank you very much. I don't see any or hear any dissenters. Can I ask if anyone wishes to move an amendment?
I put my hand up. I want to say something else.
Sorry, Stuart. Come in.
Yeah, I agree with completely. Thank you, Janet, for bringing it. It also affects the vulnerable adults bit. It's not just older people. There are people with autism and things like that who get absolutely freaked out by this, as well as animals. And it's what what Sue was saying as well about the timing. There's certain people that love buying these things and let them off all the time. So I do agree that about licensed events, it should be working towards that. Certain counts, whether it's charity events or whatever, it should be organised events, and very little else, to be quite honest, in my mind. Thank you for bringing it. It's formal licensed events when we know they're happening, and not this happening all the time, because I just don't know where they get them from. Or I do actually, but it's going off all the time and it's unexpected. So no, totally support it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stuart Ashley. I don't see any proposals for any amendment. Councillor Janet Jones, would you like to have a right of reply on that motion?
I just thank everyone for this support, and I hope it's something that we can really take forward, because it really is causing me and a lot of the other councillors in our community a great deal of concern. As I said, I would like to see more licensed events, but everything that we can do with support from the fire service and the NHS, or to support them, would really much be appreciated, and I urgently ask that we take this forward.
Thank you very much. I'm asking members if they support that motion. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That motion will be carried. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Signing off.
Sorry?
Thank you.
Oh. Takes us to motion 2, which is Councillor David Yowell. Can you move and explain your motion for us, please, as shown on page 191 of your agenda? Your mic is on, Dave.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. The huge social and political changes that the country has seen in recent years have given rise to major social divisions, especially along the lines of race, ethnicity, religion, and nationality. One of the more worrying consequences of this is the sharp rise in reported race hate crimes, which have increased by 30% since 2016. There is no place in modern society for racial discrimination and intolerance, and we should make a commitment to come together to eradicate it in all its guises. The adoption of this unity over division protocol would provide a starting point for what will hopefully be a more proactive approach to building a more inclusive workplace. I respectfully request in this motion that the Council adopts the unity over division protocol, appoints an inclusion champion who will be the lead person for the agenda, with the support of trade unions and the Council, to collaborate, monitor, facilitate and promote workplace inclusion wherever possible. Ensures that all staff members, including schools, are given appropriate training on how to adhere to the Council's equality and diversity policy, and will ensure that this document is reviewed annually. Together with trade unions, provide informative and up-to-date materials aimed at helping to promote equality and harmony within the workplace, join together with trade unions to condemn incidents where there are local and national examples of hate crime and discrimination, and finally to work with other appropriate agencies and organisations to promote cohesion inside and outside the workplace. I so move.
And I second that.
Oh, you preempted my request for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Steve Evans.
I have got a thing that I did have my hand up first anyway.
You are on the list, Councillor Stewart. Councillor Steve.
Yeah, you keep doing it.
You in now. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
I fully support this. I'm at the I have the support of people dealing with this in my own role of carrying out my duties as a councillor. So I fully support it.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor John Killick.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. I'd like to support the motion which relates purely to equality and banishing hate crime. While anybody may not like what a person or organisation says or does at any time, we should consider the present issue and not other issues that the person or organisation may believe or take action on. So it matters not what anybody may think about other views Unite may hold. The motion is about the abuse of power. I'll just continue the example of racism, which often results in hate crime. For racism is totally about the abuse of power. There are those who will say I'm not racist. Non-racist or not racist are not acceptable terms. A person is either racist or anti-racist. Sitting on the fence is not an option. The motion requests that we support Unite in, among other forms of the abuse of power, its anti-racist stance. To not support it means we are not supporting anti-racism. I support anti-racism, so I support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Killock. Councillor Kelly Preston. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hugh Bevan was next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Whilst I get the spirit in which this motion is intended, I just can't agree with it, and I'm sorry. It says that by adopting this motion, that we will be building an inclusive workplace. And that suggests that we haven't already got an inclusive workplace within Torfaen, which is alarming if that is the case. There's already a raft of legislation applicable at a national level concerning racial discrimination, along with other discrimination for inequalities. So we already have legislation in place. So we have a legal framework. We've also got, the fact that we consider ourselves to be an equal opportunity employer. We already provide training on equality, diversity, and hatred. I've been on that recently, as well as another whole host of other members. So whilst I can kind of see where he's trying to come from with the premise of the motion, I think that we're already firmly engaged in this respect, and we already have policies and procedures in place. So to have a motion, it just seems a bit redundant to me, I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Hugh Bevan. Councillor Kelly Preston.
Thanks, Rose. And thanks, Dave, for bringing this to council today. I was particularly shocked to see the statistic that reported race hate crimes had risen by almost 30% since 2016. It's just really shocking and worrying. There should be absolutely no room in our society for this kind of behaviour. Personally, I see very little in the motion to disagree with. I'm sure we're all committed to promoting workplace inclusion, and there is always more we can do to educate ourselves. I'm confident that we already promote tolerance and respect amongst this council. You know, we have training, we have policies and everything else. But as I said, there's always more we can do to educate ourselves. So this to me seems like a good way forward in terms of formalising our commitment and playing our part as a council in helping to eradicate this kind of behaviour from our society. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Preston. Councillor Richard Clark.
I support the previous speakers, Kelly and John. This isn't a redundant motion. If it was a redundant motion, you wouldn't have had a 30% increase. We've had all the legislation, guidelines, etc., but we've still had a 30% increase. So by no means this is a redundant motion. In my portfolio in education, sadly, on a regular basis, we see incidents of intolerance, of hate, and this needs to be stamped out. So if this is belt and braces, so be it. If it adds to a plethora of legislation, so be it. And we continue adding until once and for all, we stamp this out. So I will fully support this, and each of those bullet points, I really can't see how anybody would oppose. So I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Is anyone wishing to move an amendment to this motion? No. Thank you very much. Councillor Yowell, would you wish to have your right of reply?
Yeah, I'm thankful, grateful that several people, or more than several, have responded positively. Of course, Councillor Bevan has a right to his opinion and more of a right to express the opinion. But I would remind him of this, that the wording of the motion in the first part suggests a more proactive approach to building a more inclusive workplace. He's absolutely right. We are working on that all the time through the equalities section, but there's always room for improvement. And this is in part what this particular protocol, this particular motion is looking to achieve. I leave you with this expression. One of my musical idols, Neil Young, once said that rust never sleeps. And I think that there could never be a more apposite use of that particular adage, that when we refer to race, discrimination and intolerance in that context. Any more than that, I don't think I need to say. But thank you for listening and thank you for the response.
Thank you very much, everyone. That takes us to the motion. Are we all in agreement with that motion? Anybody against?
Yeah, against.
That's Councillor Hugh Bevan against. Any abstentions? That motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That takes us to agenda item number 21, which is the member question time. There is one member's question today. I believe that is from Councillor Peter Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'll go straight to the question. What steps are the council taking to get Welsh Water to deal with the regular sewerage overflows at the bottom of Ton Road and in Hollybush Close? These problems occur during periods of heavy rain.
Thank you. Executive Member for the Environment.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Jones, and I appreciate the concerns raised by our communities in these events. I know this has been an ongoing issue and one that the three ward councillors, yourself, Councillor Thomas and Councillor Burnett, have been trying to resolve for many years. I know the council have been in discussion with Welsh Water on this issue for a number of years also, in an attempt to resolve the issues. When I took over this portfolio, I was keen to work with Welsh Water to find out what the issues are and to put forward councillor and residents' points of view. So I asked to arrange a meeting. I met Welsh Water recently along with officers, and I know Councillor Thomas was available that day, so she attended and we put the community concerns to them. In that meeting, the advice from Welsh Water is that following investigation works already undertaken, they feel the issue stems from issues such as private groundwater management and unpermitted cross connections into their system, overwhelming the system on occasion. We have pressed them to advise us on how they plan to progress this matter, and that they've confirmed their next steps as further surveys to be carried out at a more local level to give more detail on any connections and revisiting of areas of high flows. I will continue to press Welsh Water to continue to make progress towards a solution. I've also put forward the point that Welsh Water needs to communicate better with the public, which will assist in ensuring that everyone is clear on responsibility and also up to date with what is being planned.
Thank you. Are you happy with that response, Councillor Jones?
I just have a right reply, Chair. I thank the executive member for that answer. As she knows, the three ward councillors, Colette Thomas, Ron Burnett and I have been pressing for many years to get Welsh Water to sort this out. Can I ask that the three ward councillors continue to be fully involved in ongoing discussions, please? Our residents expect this situation to be resolved, and I appreciate the council are doing all they can.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll comply with that request, Councillor Owen.
I appreciate that the ward, like I said, ward councillors have raised this with Welsh Water a long time, with myself, my predecessors and officers as well over a long period of time. So I intend to hold regular meetings with Welsh Water, and I will make sure that councillors are invited to everyone.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stewart Evans, your hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I also share Councillor Jones's concern regarding Welsh Water, because currently we have a problem with Welsh Water where hundreds and hundreds of gallons are still pouring down the road. So the dialogue with Welsh Water is not very good between Torfaen and Welsh Water. And I think it could be an improvement. Likewise, Amanda, if you could give us information as well regarding the offer to Peter and his ward members, could you do the same for us?
Yeah, sure. If you can email me the details, I can take it up with them as well.
Thank you very much. That takes us to agenda item number 22, which is the date and time of the next meeting. For your information, members, the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 20th of July, 2021 at 10 a.m. Agenda item 23, Cabinet decisions, 25th of March, 2021. The Cabinet decisions start on page 193 and are for the Council to note. There were no challenges to any of the decisions. And do I have everybody's agreement on noting those decisions? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Takes us to agenda item 24, the Cabinet decisions for the 25th of May, 2021. The Cabinet decisions are on